Hello, navigators. Today's lesson will be from CK12, and the lesson will be on condensation. And generally, I like you to do the reading, then do the practice. But for this day, I will be doing the reading along with you. You follow along with me. So condensation is the topic. And when you look at this picture, what do you see? I see what appears to be a spider web. Now, the liquid on the spider web should get your curiosity curious. So how is there liquid on the spider web, but it hasn't even rained? Right away I thought, oh, it rained, spider web. No, it has to do with the science concept of condensation. So follow along as I read, and we'll do some practice questions at the end. It says, this beautiful beaded net is something very common in nature, a spider web. The beads on the spider web are actually drops of water. The drops of water are not raindrops, and they weren't there on the previous day. Where did they come from? From gas to liquid. As I read, I'll drop down my cursor. You'll see the little, it'll appear for you as a little yellow circle, but that will let us know what line we're on. So, from gas to liquid, the drops of water on the spider web are dewdrops. Dewdrops. They formed overnight when warm, moist air came in contact with the cooler spider web. So you have warm, moist air, which is gas, and it comes up against the spider web, which would be colder. The contact with the cooler web cooled the air. When air cools, it can hold less water vapor. So what that means is when you have cold air, it holds less water vapor, which is gas. So there's less water in the air. So some of the water vapor in the air changed to liquid water. The process, now here's the definition basically of condensation. The process in which water vapor or another gas changes to a liquid is called condensation. Another common example of condensation is pictured in this figure. So you've seen this, and you can look tonight after school. Check out a big aircraft, and behind it, it looks like smoke. Well, some of this is smoke, but most of it's not. Most of it is a result of the science process of condensation. So it's actually water vapor that has cooled, just like we had the gas, the water vapor in the air. When it touched the colder spider web, it condenses and turns into a liquid. So what you see, this is called a contrail, condensation trail, contrail. It's condensation. It's a gas turning to a liquid. So the picture shows the contrail, or condensation trail, left behind by a jet. Water vapor in its exhaust gases condensed on dust particles in the air. Make this a little smaller. Condenses on dust particles in the air and turns to a liquid. So what's interesting is that at the center of every one of these condensation particles, I should say, there's a particle of dust. Water vapor has to have something to turn into a liquid on, so it has to be a piece of dust. So if this was my piece of dust, and here comes water vapor, and it cools as it touches the dust because the dust is colder than the gas particle. Now we have condensation. The gas turns to a liquid because it cools. Okay, dew point. Dew point. When air is very humid, like in the summer in La Crosse, it can be very humid. You go outside and you can feel, you just start sweating. Sweat beads on your your face or your arms are all sweaty. Ugh. So when air is very humid, it doesn't have to cool very much for water vapor in the air to start condensing. The temperature at which condensation occurs is called the dew point. So the temperature at which condensation occurs is called the dew point. The dew point varies depending on air temperature and moisture content. It is always less than or equal to the actual air temperature, but warmer air and moister air have dew points closer to the actual air temperature. That's why glasses of cold drinks sweat. If you put a glass down onto a table that has ice in it, and you leave it sit, especially in the summertime, on more hot and humid days, the glass will appear to sweat and drip down, and it leaves like a puddle on the table, and you'll say, well, who spilled the Mountain Dew? No, the glass has sweat. What happens is the surrounding air touches the cold glass. So if this was my glass, the gas particles touch up against the cold air, and they turn into a liquid. So, question. What happens when air temperature reaches dew point? What happens when the air temperature reaches the dew point, the point at which condensation occurs? Answer. When the air temperature reaches the dew point, water vapor starts condensing. That means turning to a liquid. Say it. Water vapor turning to a liquid is condensation or condensing. It may form dew, as on the spider web in the beginning or the opening image. Clouds or fog. Clouds are due to condensation, so is fog. Dew forms on all solid objects on the ground. Clouds form on tiny particles in the air high above the ground. Fog is a cloud that forms on tiny particles in the air close to the ground. So you can have dew on the ground. Have you ever walked across, in the summertime, have you ever walked across grass in the morning? Your feet get soaking wet. It's because dew, the gas, the water vapor in the air, condenses as it touches the colder piece of grass, and it turns into a liquid. The same thing happens in clouds. The same thing happens in fog. Here's a picture of fog. So the reason we have fog, and we say fog is basically a cloud near the Earth's surface, is because water vapor in the air has touched a particle. The water vapor touches the particle, it cools, and it turns into a liquid. And that's why we see it. So condensation in the water cycle. The water cycle continuously recycles Earth's water. I always say it's like this. Or maybe I should do this. You've got evaporation, it goes up, cools, condenses, falls. The water cycle continuously recycles Earth's water. Condensation plays an important role in this cycle. Find condensation in the water cycle below. Okay, let's find it. Here's condensation, right here. Without condensation, the water cycle would be interrupted and the Earth's water would not recycle. So we have this cycle where we have water that gains heat energy, evaporates, goes up into the higher atmosphere, cools, condenses on particles of dust, and then falls as rain, sleet, snow, hail. Okay? Some of the water is stored in oceans, some of the water rolls down mountains on streams, some sits in lakes, and then some seeps into the ground. But the whole point is here, condensation plays a role. Question. In the water cycle, what happens to the water after it condenses? After water condenses, it may form clouds that produce precipitation such as rain. So after we have condensation, as the form of a cloud in this picture, it may condense to a certain point where the particle gets so heavy that it falls as rain, sleet, snow, or hail. So the summary, the process in which water vapor or any other gas changes to a liquid is called condensation. The temperature at which condensation of water vapor occurs is called the dew point? The dew point varies depending on air temperature and moisture content. Condensation plays an important role in the water cycle. Without it, the Earth's water would not recycle. So, you should be able to answer these questions. What is condensation? Give an example. Condensation is when water vapor in the air touches up against something that's cooler and the water vapor becomes a liquid. Give an example, the spider web, a contrail of a jet aircraft. Define dew point. Dew point is the temperature at which water vapor in the air condenses, meaning it turns to a liquid. Factors that influence dew point is the temperature of the air itself. We have much more humid air in the summer, so our dew point is generally higher in the summer. In the water cycle, how does water vapor in the atmosphere change to a liquid water on the ground? Well, in the water cycle, water in the atmosphere is cooled, falls as rain, sleet, snow, or hail, and it hits the ground. You can watch this video for a little bit more. This video, these are very good short videos that you can watch in addition. But really what I want you to do now after you watch those videos is do some of the practice by clicking on practice. And I'll take these and add them to our Kahoot. So make sure you do the practice as many times as it takes to get 100%. The dew point depends on A, speed of the wind, B, temperature of the air, C, amount of moisture in the air, or D, two of the above. Well, certainly not speed of the wind, but the temperature of the air and the amount of moisture in the air has an effect on our dew point. Do another one. Condensation is responsible for forming dew, yes, like on the spider web or your grass, fog, yes, and clouds. So D, all of the above. That's as far as I'm going to go. And you do the rest until you get 100%. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you understand condensation.